We'll take about 10 minutes for the employers to ask questions to the panelists if there are any. But before we get started with the panel, I do want to acknowledge some of my colleagues here at the USC Career Center who are joining us today. So we have Mia, I believe Lauren, I'm not sure if I see her name, and Stephanie, and of course Liz. So if you all could just quickly introduce yourself before we get started, that would be great.
So hi everyone, my name is Mia. I'm also a graduate intern at the Career Center, and I'm just going to be taking notes from all of our panelists today. So thank you for having me.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Galindo. I'm one of the senior career advisors at the USC Career Center, and I'm here for moral support. Looking forward to hearing about the discussion today.
Thank you, Mia and Stephanie. But yes, today we have 14 employers and 4 panelists. So essentially the purpose of DSPD or this event is to enhance the hiring practices and improve the workplace dynamics for all identities. So our panelists consist of students with intersectional identities, and they're from various majors, grade levels, and organizations, and they're here to discuss their experience with the recruiting process and the DEI initiatives they believe companies and employers should implement to make their workplace more inclusive and diverse. Like what I mentioned, we have 4 panelists today. So we have Jerry, Juan, Kimberly, and Tyrell. And again, Tyrell was actually part of the panel last semester. So thank you so much for coming back. But could you all just quickly introduce yourself to everyone, your name, pronouns, class standing, major, and some of your involvements. But before that, I'm going to send a link in the chat with their profile so the employers can go ahead and look over that as well. But if we could get started with the introduction with Jerry.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ella. Hi, everyone. My name is Gerardo. I also go by Jerry, and I'm a third-year undergrad student here at USC. I'm majoring in business administration with a minor in applied artificial intelligence. And I currently serve as a student ambassador at the USC Admission Center, but outside of these involvements that I have on campus, I also will be serving as an incoming summer analyst at Accenture in the New York office this upcoming summer. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Juan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Oh, hello, everybody. My name is Juan Pedro Bernal. I am a senior here at USC and studying accounting. And I will be looking for my master's degree in accounting in the program of this next semester. And oh yeah, my pronouns is he, him, his. And the involvements that I'm here at USC, I'm a vice president in professional events in Alpha, which is the Association of Latino Professionals for America. And I'm also involved with the Veterans Resource Center. I work at the work study here, and I'm glad to be here. That's a little bit about me. I've done an internship with Ernst & Young, and I'm looking for a next internship this upcoming summer for audit. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Juan. And can we have Kim introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Kimberly Rochingiroa. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently a second year studying health and human science with a minor in occupational science. And then I currently work as a first year peer mentor through the Dornside first year experience.
Tyrell, you can go ahead. Sorry, I don't know if you can read.
Oh, no, I didn't hear you.
Okay.
Hey, everyone. Thank you again for having me back. My name is Terrell Green. I am a grad student at the Annenberg School, got about 10 weeks left, and studying digital media management. Super excited. And my he, him pronouns and my school involvement, I was the former director of networking for the Black Graduate Student Network. I also have had internships with the Annenberg Agency, and currently I am a scholar for the Black Alumni Association. And outside of school, I work with an organization called Educators for Excellence as a chief of staff for their LA office.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. I see that Lauren have also joined us. Lauren, do you want to quickly introduce yourself before we get started with the panel?
Sure, I can do that. Hi and welcome everyone. My name is Lauren Opgenorth. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Associate Director of Internship Engagement here at the USC Career Center. So delighted to bring together such a wonderful panel and moderator. So I'll turn it back to you, Ella. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. With all of the introductions done, we can go ahead and get started with the questions if that's okay. But the first question is, what do you look for in an organization when applying to internships and jobs? And we can get started with Juan, and any of the panels can just jump in after Juan answers.
Yeah, this is a really good question. So what I do, I look at the organization to make sure that my personal values kind of align with the organizational values of what they do and what they look for. And I also try to look for opportunities of how to educate or future like growth, like growing myself, because I know school is, they educate you at a certain point, but life is ongoing. So it's a learning experience, and I would want to keep growing within myself with whatever comes new with the organization. And I would also like to see that the organization has like maybe some culture groups that I could have more comfortable and my personal comfort to going up to someone with similar experiences, similar backgrounds. So I could have that psychological safety of just going in there and speaking my mind and seeing what I could learn from them. So, yeah, that's my spiel of that, but I could open it up for the other panelists to chip in.
Yeah, I could totally echo what Juan was saying. In addition to that, I consider myself to be a very eager person in the learning environment. So I'm always up for a challenge and always trying to get out of my comfort zone to try new things. So when I look for different organizations, different companies, I'm always looking for a workspace environment that is going to give me the opportunity to try new things that I've never kind of, put myself in. And so outside of the projects and the tasks that I will be assigned, I kind of also would want that flexibility to embark on other projects outside of my position, whether that's, being involved with the community, some sort of mentorship program, or any other, activities or tasks, again, that I could take part in, is something that I feel like really catches my eye within an organization.
I can hop in, Jerry. That was such a good point. One of the things that I look for is it is obvious to say the benefits package, but I look at the benefits package because I think that the more that I've learned about leadership, how you take care of the people that work for you really shows the values of your organization and company. So I'm often eager to see how quick do I have access to my healthcare benefits, like, like what is my package going to be? Because I know what the work is, but I got to know how I'm taken care of too. And then also I am a digital media student. So I do a digital, I look at all the digital assets of a company to see where they really are in this digital landscape, and are they moving forward with the digital evolution that's happening.
To add on with everything, I think when looking for opportunities, I often look at the community that comes with the internship or job. I often like to see if there's active alumni or people within the organization that are willing to share their experience, to see what community I'm possibly entering. Especially as a first-gen student, there's a lot of uncertainties that come with looking for internship for the first time or applying for a job outside of college or inside the college. So looking for mentorship if that's available, or just seeing if those who are in like leadership positions are willing to give advice outside of like their working hours, or reaching out to them through like a cold email or whatnot.
Thank you everyone for sharing your answer. But yes, I do want to emphasize one of the things that was mentioned. I think a lot of students, when they're applying to internships and jobs, is how they're a fit for that company. But like what Jerry mentioned, is also important to see how your values and how you are as a person gonna benefit from the internship and the job itself. But thank you so much. Those were all great answers. And now moving on to the next question. How do you feel about organizations that have specific diversity opportunities or leadership programs? And we'll get started off with Jerry.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I could kind of touch base on my personal experience through the recruitment process. So as I mentioned, this upcoming summer, I will be interning as a summer analyst at Accenture. And through my process, I kind of started my journey with Accenture, starting off with their student leadership program. And essentially, it's a program that prepares undergrad students to just kind of get acclimated to the culture, the community within Accenture, but also the different professional tracks and other available opportunities within the firm itself. And within the student leadership track, they also had different, what is it called? Different leadership and diversity groups. So I was part of the Diverse Leaders for Tomorrow track. And essentially it was a group of students who came from different cultural backgrounds. And honestly, it was a very tight community that I was able to build with those other students, simply because I am a first generation student. I also grew up in a city that is predominantly Hispanic. So one thing that USC has definitely helped me in a sense is to acclimate myself and adapt to diverse environments. That was something completely new to me when I entered the university. So being able to be a part of these different diverse groups in these, big corporations in the professional world is something that I truly have been able to benefit from. Now being being able to then be provided like the different resources and mentorship through that program to then successfully sign a full internship opportunity. I began to research a little bit about the different cultural groups or diversity groups within the company itself. And again, I am a first-gen student, so going into the professional world, no one in my family has ever worked for any sort of big corporation. And so I definitely would want to have people that I could connect to and reach out to, people who came from similar cultural backgrounds as did, share similar identities, to simply just kind of help me through the transition as a incoming analyst into the firm. And so I think that diversity aspect within a firm really could come a long way in being able to just adapt to the culture, community, and just provide that sort of mentorship that was also mentioned earlier.
I'll hop in. As someone, so I identify, I'm an openly gay man and I am Black, if you couldn't tell from my frame. So I do have intersecting identities, very similar to what Jerry's speaking of, being the first to go to college in my family and to kind of have these professional, my mother went to college after me, so it's very fun. But to have these professional opportunities, I think it is important to have these diversity and leadership programs because for me, it has been a wonderful way for mentorship and to meet individuals that believe in me in a way that folks from my network and community that I grew up in may not have the skills or tools to know how to. So, and believe it or not, some of those mentors didn't always represent my identities, but I was able to get connections through these programs or groups. So I think it is super important, and also to add the sort of cultural aspect of whatever group you represent to any events when you can, that all the company or organization attends is super helpful. So I think they are great when cross collaboration is also coexisting with these groups.
Yeah, I could also chip in just like how Terrell and Gerardo are saying. Yeah, the diversity groups, it's for me, a very good idea because I'm also a first generation student, and I'm not a typical student that went straight from high school to a college. I took a 10-year break off of education. I joined the Marine Corps. I did 10 years in the Marines. And what I saw in my first internship, and I was scared out of my mind, and I saw that they have had a veteran network, and I got to know these people, and it was a very good experience to like talk to these people that have some similar experiences that I had, and they let me know how things are run in the company or in the firm or whatever, and it made me feel more of a home instead of like just being there. I'm a little bit older than the average intern, and I just feel kind of out of place, but these people made me feel, hey, you belong here, you're with us, and it felt really good. So that's my take on it.
I completely agree with what everyone has been saying. I think when entering our programs that have like specific diversity opportunities or leadership programs, I think the two most important things I look for when engaging in this experience is like mental health resources. I feel like oftentimes in like marginalized communities, there isn't discussions about mental health, and that really has an impact on your work ethic or like finding community within your internship or job, and how that affects how you carry yourself within the company or organization. And also just having open discussion. I think when I'm in a group where people look like me or have experiences that we all share, and have those conversations that may not be often shared with one another because of fear or because of like imposter syndrome. I think by joining the programs I've been in before, like leadership programs specifically for women of color or low income students, I have really found community within those, and those have helped me like excel in my academic and professional ventures. So
Thank you so much. For the next question, is a two-part question. What recommendations do you have for organizations that are hoping to increase access to underrepresented students? For organizations in the beginning stages of outreach or recruitment, what advice can you offer for engaging with underrepresented students? And any of you guys can start with this one.
I guess,
I could go ahead and, oh, sorry.
no, you could go ahead.
Okay, so basically, one thing I didn't mention is that I also serve as the VP of Professional and Community Development with the Latino Business Student Association on campus. And one thing, one of our main projects that our VPs of corporates really focus on is getting different recruiters to come out to campus and basically engage with members of our organization. Again, we are a Latinx focus group within the Business Association. And so being able to have different diversity groups that also pertain to these particular firms come to these particular identity-based organizations on college campuses could really come a long way. I, starting the recruitment process freshman year, again, wasn't really so familiar as to how things really work. I was applying to internships like a month before the summer and was thinking that I was going to somehow figure something out and get something. Realized later on that wasn't the case. Recruitment process really starts early on. And so I was able to kind of learn a little bit more about this, particularly with a recruiter that I spoke to. Don't remember exactly the firm. However, it was during my sophomore year. And particularly this recruiter themselves was a first generation Latinx student as well, who actually to USC. And so being able to just kind of connect with them and kind of learn a little bit about their experience through the recruitment process was something that not only educated me, but also just motivated me, because I was able to see someone that was in my shoes go through what I'm going to be embarking on in the next couple of months. And so being able to see how there is just people in the position that I aspire to be in the future already was something that motivated me. So overall, just kind of on that point, being able to like contact organizations within university campuses that align to, again, different diversity groups or overall identity-based groups that could that could basically draw an impact on students who could really relate to those people with a specific personality, particular identity, and just showcase them that it is possible no matter where you come from.
I'll answer here as well. I love this question because I often have to say that I always recommend to organizations when they have to ask this question, how do we gain access to underrepresented students, that they then ask themselves, why do we have to ask ourselves that question? But my first thing is, I think, be transparent about what your DEIA goals are in your organization with folks. And if that means we want to get better at it, being transparent about that, because I think folks value transparency. And I also think that, there are just wonderful ways to connect with folks on the web. There's so many social media platforms. There are unique ways to recruit people. I was just watching a segment that was talking about how a lot of folks are starting to show their skills and talents through social media platforms for applying to jobs, so there are ways, there are new skill sets that people have, like when folks say, how long have you been working on, Microsoft Office? I'm like, just 30 plus years count? Because I feel like my entire life, so there are skill sets that folks have that are unique to their experiences and that are unique to their environments that could definitely push your organization forward. A lot of organizations have reported that their revenue increases when they have diverse collaborators at the table.
Yeah, I could also say some words about this. Yeah, and reaching out to organizations is great and all, but also like in my experience, being a VP and Alpha, we also do some events that are fun, that are not just like internship related or resume interview tips kind of stuff. We like to go hiking or do an event in hiking or go bowling. I know we're planning something for bowling, and it would be great for organizations to come and ask the association to like, hey, if there's no spot for us to come to do a work study kind of event, what other fun things are you guys doing? And maybe, because we do have a lot of good turnout. Sometimes when we plan a internship work study event or something like that, we don't get as many students to participate. But when we do something fun, for some reason, they all want to come. And it will be a great idea for a company or firm or organization to come down and participate as well and get the word out to these students and in a different environment. And I haven't seen that yet, but I think that would be a good idea.
To add on everything, I think considering USC has like a career fair where a lot of employers come and students can like bring their resumes and talk to them, it can often be overwhelming, like how to go about that process. So I think if potentially looking to like address students on campus who are minorities or come from marginalized groups, you can like partner up with pre-existing culture center, culture organizations that already have those students who may need the extra help, or instead of just coming to a generic career fair where students who have the resources or have the advice to already seek those jobs, I think it would create a more of an equitable opportunity for all.
I think kind of just want to mention real quick on that note that Kimberly mentioned, just a couple of weeks ago, USC actually hosted its first Black career fair. And I think that that's kind of a good example of what Kim is really tailoring to. Again, there are almost like over 100 different companies that come out and try to recruit students during our semester career fair. And again, it could be pretty overwhelming. There's going to be like 10 plus people per line just waiting to like speak with these recruiters. And again, it's going to be intimidating, especially again, as a first generation student, as a minority. So being able to contact, like, for example, like the Black Student Assembly, the Latinx Student Assembly, any other cultural affinity groups on our campus, and kind of seeing what projects they have up in the works could be a great resource for different companies and firms to really target these particular marginalized groups and give them these opportunities that they are capable of accomplishing and succeeding in. It's just a matter of putting in that step forward to just kind of provide them that confidence and the confidence that they just need.
Thank you so much. Those were all great recommendations. The next question is again a two-part question. We'll get started with Juan for this one. But the question is, what questions about your identity or diversity initiatives do you want to ask employers but don't? What should employers be addressing on their website or in Trojan Talk so that you do not have to ask these questions?
Yeah, this does bring up, because it is intimidating, like how Jerry was saying earlier, like to ask a lot of these questions. And before, when I started my recruiting process, I was scared. I was like, man, I don't know anything about this whole recruiting stuff. And there is a lot of questions that are in my mind that I want to ask, but is it the right questions to ask? And yeah, a question that I would want to ask, but I didn't at first, was do you have any separate groups or from diversity that are kind of same background as me? And the reason why I didn't want to ask those questions is because it's like in my thought process was, well, why are you asking? Like, you haven't even stepped foot in the door for like an interview yet. Like, why are you asking this? So yeah, something like that. That's like a question that is kind of like made me feel like, oh, I don't know if I want to ask this question, because it will maybe sound kind of, let's say, sound kind of bad in my mind. And what I suggest for these companies or organizations is, yeah, like on their website or on social media, because now everybody's on social media, is just to post like what's going on in like in their culture environment in the organization. What kind of stuff are they doing? Where do they have a like USC, they have La Casa, they have APAS, they have first generation department, and the Veterans Resource Center, they have something like that. And it'll be nice to see if in their website or something that they have something similar, so you could ask about it. Like, you have the open door to ask a little bit about it. So yeah, that's my spiel about that.
I think it's always tough to negotiate for yourself. So one of my favorite jobs I had actually provided me their salary matrix and how they decide people's salary. And it was just very helpful, because I think, being a person of color is very easy to say, am I getting my worth? What is my worth? And so to actually have a matrix that showed, okay, this is where, the cost of living in the city versus per capita, like it made it very logical, and I didn't have to like begin to go into my own sort of like, Terrell, are you enough? Or did they do that to me because I'm Black? Like that sort of thing. Like I really had a substantial information to make my decision. And I think also my last bad work experience, I think it was once I was in the organization, it was clear that they didn't have like a strategic plan. And I wish that like I had kind of asked those questions or like demanded more to know about like why they didn't have a strategic plan, because eventually it affected my work and my growth in the organization. So I think, being able to have like maybe just even if it's like an infographic, just like a simple strategic plan on post or on their website, or just the space to ask those questions.
Yeah, both Juan and Terrell have made great points. Kind of thinking about this question, I kind of think about the intersection that it kind of brings, specifically in terms of like students who are applying to like universities and like higher education. I again serve as a student ambassador at the USC Admission Center, and so I could really relate to the stories a lot of students really share and the concerns they may have. I think it's oftentimes kind of asked or even thought about, like, was I admitted to this institution simply because of my race, because of my identity, because who I identify as? Is it because the university simply wants to increase the percentages of diversity and simply make that impact worldwide? I think that that's something that is a question that a lot of people often ask themselves. And it kind of goes back to like what Terrell was mentioning, like, what's my worth? Like, am I worth enough, for this position? And I think it also goes back to his point of being able to have that transparency. As a university, we make it very, very clear that we have like a holistic approach when we're reviewing applications. And so not your SAT score, GPA, not your essays, not your identity is solely based on this decision whether you're admitted or not. It's a holistic approach, meaning that every component of your application is evaluated equally. I think similarly, that could be something that could be applied to the recruitment process, specifically within different companies and firms, being transparent about what your mission, what diversity groups really is, and what you as a company are trying to really foster by having these diversity groups. I think that kind of mentioning like Trojan Talks and all that good stuff, I think it's very important to really make people within the firm accessible for those outside of the firm. Not too sure that was clear enough, but what I'm trying to say is that oftentimes it can be pretty difficult as a undergrad student trying to secure a job. Simply sometimes I try to reach out to a firm, want to connect with someone who is working in a particular position or identifies within a particular diversity group. And sometimes I don't get a response. And again, I know that working professional is hard life, difficult, other responsibilities. And so I totally understand that. But I feel like one thing that firms could also really work on is that communication effort with those outside of the firm, because at the end of the day, like the success and growth of the firm itself are those who are coming in. Everyone who is coming in, new hires, new employees, are those bringing in new insights. And at the end of the day, your company, the firm itself, can't grow without bringing this diversity of thoughts. So again, overall, just being able to mention and highlight the importance of that.
We can move on to the next question, which is when you are employed at an organization, what makes you feel supported and how do you feel valued?
I definitely think the ability to, oh, sorry, Juan. I definitely think Jerry mentioned something earlier about being able to develop, outside of my job description, not meaning like taking on additional tasks, but definitely being able to professionally develop and bring that back to leadership in a way that it's like, okay, you just went to that conference, but I can actually begin to find ways to incorporate what I've learned, because that going to professionally develop is something that is of interest to me. So I can then bring that interest back to the organization and see if there's a way to fit into it. So I mean, I do love learning personally. So I'm always like, how can I go professionally develop even though I'm at work? So really having those opportunities are super helpful and lets me know that I'm valued and what I am interested in is valued.
Yeah, that was a great point, Terrell. And I would also think about like the feedback. For me, feedback. I grew up, in the Marine Corps, which feedback was always negative, and there was never a solution. It's like just figure it out. What I feel like what I experienced in the internship, the feedback was very firm and there was like it went just more of just letting me know how I'm doing. They're giving me a story. They're giving me like, all right, this is many avenues of like how you could improve, and giving you like rational thinking of oh, I could actually do this, or nah, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And having the transparent conversation with that mentor or that superior would really make me feel like, okay, this guy's actually thinking about me and really wants me to grow and succeed in this internship, or maybe later on in the future, having me work for him or work in this organization. So yeah, I really think the feedback, having a lot of thought process to go into the feedback process would be a very good thing that an organization could do.
I completely agree with Juan. I think within organizations, there should be opportunities for like employee resource groups, where the groups within underrepresented communities, such as people of color, women, or individuals with disabilities, can come with one another and share like what's working and what isn't working for them, for themselves, and like what isn't working and what is working as an organization with the whole. So just having open conversation with people from your own workforce, or extending to those that are like in higher positions, with that, it will allow improvement of not only like the organization as a whole, but also as an individual, and how you'll excel and improve, or move forward with the organization.
Yeah, I want to pinpoint on one thing. Specifically, when I was kind of going through the recruitment process, one thing I was doing was really trying to network with professionals who are currently employed at those different firms. And one thing that I remember a lot of these full-time employees would say was that when you're an intern, when you're a new hire, these firms love you. They're giving you so many free things. They're giving you trips here, bonuses here, and all this good stuff. And once you've been at the firm for some time, like all these opportunities, all these resources kind of just begin to be taken away from you. And I think that that's kind of one thing I want to note, that there are different ways for one to feel supported and feel valued, but I don't really think that that should be a temporary thing. That should definitely be a long-term thing. You as a company, like as a recruiter, it can be pretty difficult if you kind of paint this facade for a new hire, and like a couple months later, this employee is like, you know what, like I'm not being treated the same as I initially was. Let me just go find another opportunity. Kind of continuing that cycle could be a detriment to the company itself, because it could be hard for the firm or the company, again, organization, to keep employees growing. And so I think that that's, again, I'm not a professional in that field, and I haven't really worked in corporate environments or all that for not that long. So not really sure what are particular strategies or ways to make sure that that support or feeling of being valued could really go long term. But that's just like one thing that I've noted through my time in recruitment and stuff.
Thank you so much for your answers. I'll ask my last question for the panel, and then we'll open it up for the employers to ask their questions. So feel free to send your questions in the chat. But the last question I have for the panelists is, as campus leaders, how do you create a sense of belonging and inclusion within your student groups on campus? I know all four of you guys are very involved on campus, so I'm just wondering, how do you honor this in your positions?
Absolutely. I think as leaders, we have a responsibility to take care of ourselves, but also take care of those who reside within our organization. So having open hours where they can come in and talk to you. I personally have like a meeting calendar where they can like set up 30-minute hour sessions that they can just talk about whatever they're going through, whether that be like in school or outside of school. But also if I'm not too sure about the resources that are available, I always try to connect them to people that can help them out. So if it's something that like a counselor can help them out with, like I suggest them to go to the student health center. Or if it's something like issues with like their identity, I connect them with like the student union and all the resources they have there. So just answering the questions to the extent I can, but also being aware of what resources are available within campus, because I feel like we can't just help out individuals on our own. Like it takes a lot of people to help out one another if we want to excel together as a community.
I definitely want to hop into what Kimberly just said. It's so important, I think, to remember to create space for others and to give the opportunity for others to lead and when they can and be a coach when you can. So I always try to lead with that, finding spaces to say, you were really great at this, can you please help, or can you please lead there, is something that I try to always incorporate in my leadership on campus and off campus.
Yeah, Tara mentioned great points as well. And I think that a common phrase that I kind of follow by when I hold leadership positions is more on the lines of lead by example and not by command. I think it's very easy as a leader to just kind of tell people what to do. But again, oftentimes there's going to be a lot of unclarifying things, and that cannot really, that oftentimes is not going to be the best learning experience for the individual. So being able to be a successful mentor leader, I think comes with actually breaking down step by step what actually comes with the different roles. For example, again, I'm on the e-board for the Latino Business Student Association. And one thing that we're launching this semester is like a junior board. And it's kind of more of like they're not taking like major big tasks, but they're constantly going to be shadowing us throughout the spring semester, so that if they are interested in taking on these e-board positions for the next school year, they'll kind of have already a bigger insight of what these roles really partake in. Additionally, it also serves as a great way for them to also see if, this is something that's for them or not. Oftentimes, it's part of the journey. Encountering an opportunity that you think was probably going to be the best thing for you and ends up like not being it, it's not a bad thing. It's definitely, again, a learning experience, and it's going to eventually open more doors to a directory of something that you are truly going to be passionate about and display that great work ethic in within.
We have a few questions in the chat from the employers. The first one is from John. His question is, what could be improved upon regarding the candidate experience, job descriptions, the application process, interview process, communication cadence, etc. I don't know, John, if you'd want to elaborate further about your question.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I'm a recruiter for Real Chemistry High. Thank you guys so much. This has been incredibly insightful. We're always trying to be mindful of bettering the candidate experience, certainly from a DE&I perspective, but just overall in general. And so I'm kind of wanting to hear about, this is not meant to sound gossipy or untoward, but any examples of a time a recruiter or a talent acquisition team, or I suppose a company in general, has kind of failed you as an applicant, where you felt like, I wish they had done something different to better the candidate experience for me.
I could hop on. Yeah, when I first started with my recruiting process, yeah, it was overwhelming, of course. And I didn't realize that at first that, yeah, recruiters, they're busy. They're very busy, and they have to deal with so much stuff. And but the thing is, as not knowing the whole life of being a recruiter, that line of communication sometimes gets lost. And I would send an email out and just trying to figure out, hey, can we meet? Can we have a coffee chat, or can we do something? But sometimes with these recruiters, the line of communication will get lost, and then I'll start, you know what, let me just jump to another recruiter or another company. But I guess that's how the game works, because a lot of these recruiters, and I've talked to many, that they deal with so many emails and so many people that they need to communicate with, and it's hard on the whole process for everyone. So it is a kind of hard thing to think about.
One thing that I would say particularly, not necessarily along the lines of a team failing me as an applicant, but more about improving the candidate experience. I know again, many times it can be pretty overwhelming receiving, multiple applications from many well-qualified candidates. One thing though that I truly, truly dislike and hold it close to my heart are those, I forgot what hire review, like those recorded interviews that you only have like 1 minute to answer a question, and it's like a 5 questions that you have 20 seconds to prepare. And I'm just not a big fan of those. I've done multiple of them for different internships. Some went a little further in the process, others didn't. But I just don't think that it's a full representation of a student. I think that it could be very difficult to really express your successes, your accomplishments, and who you are as a person under like a 1 minute response. And so I feel like it's a lot more about the communication and being able to allocate that time. Again, for companies that are relatively small, I know that it could be pretty difficult working as a recruiter, as well as, taking on a full-time role within like taking on multiple roles within the company. And so, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. But basically, with smaller companies particularly, I just wanted to pinpoint about being able to really focus on individuals who could really make an impact aside from just numbers, like aside from just evaluating a resume and things like that. To grow, I think a smaller company and smaller business really comes with people who are really trying to be proactive, are effective communicators, and really are trying to lead and value learning. And I think that being able to just kind of, expand the number of coffee chats, open events that, people could just kind of join onto seminars. Like I know that a lot of firms, what they do is that they will have like different info sessions about particular aspects of the company, whether it's like recruitment, diversity groups, how to, feel like you're welcome and like all that stuff. So I think that just being able to offer those resources so that individuals could learn about your company and learn about your firm, especially for smaller companies, could kind of go a lot more way.
We do have 2 more questions from Kyle and Nicole. Would you guys like to ask the question? Or would you like me to go ahead and read it off?
Yeah, I don't mind saying it out loud. Pretty much gonna be word for word, but yeah, first off, thank y'all. This is really insightful, really helpful. I was in the like application process myself, like recently graduated last year, other side of town. So but yeah, so I mean, from a lot of the answers I've been hearing, it sounds like a lot of these diversity groups and initiatives, they really do apply to like mid to large scale companies or corporations. And I was just wondering, for like smaller, for example, nonprofits like the one I work for, with like 10 employees or less, what sort of green flags, I guess, do y'all look for in terms of employers that are looking to support DEI initiatives in either their mission or their operations, but maybe they don't have the size or the capacity or even the budget to engage in larger programs like diversity groups?
I always look to see what basically I look to see, I'm big on like what the public facing like what they're doing on social media, right? And so I just want to make sure a green flag for me is how they are reaching out and recruiting. What are the methods that they've gone about, right? Like if I'm just seeing you on Indeed.com, I do not want to meet that HR department. I'm going to be honest, right? Like, but if I'm seeing you with a very cool, well, not cool, that's subjective, but with a unique way of getting your call out, whether it's a video on LinkedIn or it's a YouTube ad, it's a sponsor ad. Like I'm like, those people are thinking uniquely, they're thinking in today's world and potentially tomorrow's world. And they have people on staff that's saying, hey, this is where the people's at, you know? So the way in which folks recruit is a green flag for me always, you know? And I think, yeah, so that's what I'll say. I'll start.
Yeah, I could pinpoint just one quick thing very briefly. I think that again, smaller groups with lower amount of employees, it can be very difficult to have that outreach to particular groups. But I think that one thing that I really was able to gain 2 summers ago, I was able to work with like this nonprofit, and they were also relatively small. And one thing that I really valued about the organization itself was that aside from my first internship, I obviously had no prior experience and any consulting work before that. I had some exposure to nonprofits, but again, on the consulting aspect of it, didn't really have anything. But there was mentors that were able to guide me and provide me the resources through the process. We had like weekly check-ins with the mentors and kind of seeing like how much progress we've had on the project and if we had any clarifying questions. I think that just being able to have that constant communication and constant support is something that could go a long way for these particular groups that don't have that much of a background experience in it.
I know for our last question, we have Nicole. I was wondering if you'd still like to expand on that question.
So I think I'll actually go to my second question that I put in the chat there, but I think it's just really interesting right now with the new salary transparency laws in California and really, you know, giving that experience back to the candidates for you to make that decision earlier on, whether it's something that is going to be viable for you to move forward in that process. I think it's a win-win on both sides, but I'm interested, you know, when you look at companies that maybe have a lower base compensation there, but there are a lot of other benefits, whether it's on the DE&I side or, you know, more traditional benefits. How are you balancing those priorities and assessing those companies to make sure that, you know, it's not just the base comp that is standing out? I think for our organization, sometimes that's a little bit lower than larger banks, but we have a really great work-life balance and really strong business resource groups. And so I just want to make sure that we are highlighting those things to make sure that we're getting through to the candidates. And if you have any thoughts on that.
I think that as transparent as a company and organization can be, hopefully very, I think being able to address that and being able to say to folks, you know, you are a growing organization, you know, you are a growing bank, I believe you said, or corporation, you know, and with that, you know, you're looking for talent that's growing as well. And because of you are growing, the benefits and highlights that the benefits you have are in this work-life balance, that, you know, like, you know, and I think it's really important to highlight those things and say that we are investing in not only the future of the organization, but the future of you. And when you can provide, I'm very interested in being able to get professional development, because I think that you are investing in me as a person, in my future, and that's equity and inclusion, right? Like just beyond sort of just like diversity, I'm now getting something because I work at this place that I can't get anywhere else. And it might be learning this, you know, how to invest in stocks, or it might be learning, you know, how to, you know, something financial that historically I may have not had access to because of my identities.
That's a really good point.
Thank you. I know we only have about 3 minutes left of this event, and so I do want to honor everyone's time, but I would like to thank everyone again for coming today. Thank you for the panelists for all of your insightful questions, as well as the employers for taking your time to join our event today. Mia took notes of the answers to the questions, so we'll be sending out those or the notes to the employers along with the profile of the panelists. The profile includes the contact information of the panelists today, so if you would like to get in contact with them, you can go ahead and do that. But again, we would just would like to thank you for your intention to enhance the hiring and recruiting practices of your company and improve the workplace dynamics for all identities. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great afternoon, rest of your day, and stay dry if you're in Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say great job. That's why I stayed on.
Congratulations. It was wonderful.